All right, you guys, we come on the air today with some tragic news. Reverend Jesse Jackson, he was a central figure in the American civil rights movement and an icon, truly. He has passed today. He was 84 years old, and he was like I said, a very prominent figure in the civil rights movement. He also worked alongside Martin Luther King Jr., as you can see in this photograph here. And President Trump has responded to his passing in a lengthy post to Truth Social. I will read it to you in its entirety. Quote, "The Reverend Jesse Jackson is dead at 84. I knew him well long before becoming president. He was a good man with lots of personality, grit, and street smarts. He was very gregarious, someone who truly loved people. Despite the fact that I am falsely and consistently called a racist by the scoundrels and lunatics on the radical left, Democrats all, it was always my pleasure to help Jesse along the way. I provided office space for him and his Rainbow Coalition for years. In the Trump building at 40 Wall Street, responded to his requests for help in getting criminal justice reform passed and signed when no other president would even try. Single-handedly pushed and passed long-term funding for HBCUs, which Jesse loved, but also which other presidents would not do. Responded to Jesse's support for Opportunity Zones, the single most successful economic development package yet, approved for black businessmen and women, and much more. Jesse was a force of nature like few others before him. He had much to do with the election, without acknowledgement or credit of Barack Hussein Obama, a man who Jesse could not stand. He loved his family greatly, and to them I send my deepest sympathies and condolences. Jesse will be missed. President Donald J. Trump. So that was the statement this morning from President Trump on the passing of Reverend Jesse Jackson. So Mr. Jackson, the Reverend, he actually had two historical runs for presidency in 1984 and 1988. He became the first black candidate to actually mount some a serious bid for any major party's nomination. He actually had a very large amount of support in those primaries. He came in third and second place. I have this tribute video from CNN's Abby Phillips. It's about 3 minutes, a little bit under 4 minutes long, and I want to show you guys this video right now.
Jesse Jackson's life was defined by a relentless fight for justice and equality.
I was born in Greenville, South Carolina, in rampant radical racial segregation. I had to be taught to go to the back of the bus or be arrested.
Those early experiences drove Jackson to join the civil rights movement.
The fact is, against the odds, we knew there were great odds, we were winning.
In 1965, he began working for Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.
I learned so much from him, such a great source of inspiration.
King named Jackson to lead Operation Breadbasket in Chicago, an economic justice campaign for black people. However, some say King was frustrated by Jackson's brashness and ambition.
I'm sure he thought I needed more time. I was 24 years old.
Both men were in Memphis in April 1968 to support striking sanitation workers. King and other civil rights leaders were staying at the Lorraine Motel.
He said, "Jesse, you know you don't even have on a shirt and tie. You don't even have on a tie. We're going to dinner." I said, "Doc, it does not require a tie, just an appetite." We laughed. I said, "Doc," and the bullet hit. Everything changed at that moment. It was a defining moment in the history of our struggle.
With King gone, his movement was adrift. Years later, Jackson formed Operation Push, pressuring businesses to open up to black workers and customers and adding more focus on black responsibility, championed in the 1972 concert Wattstax.
In Watts, we have shifted from burn, baby, burn to learn, baby, learn.
And he expanded his own global reach too, helping to free U.S. Lieutenant Robert Goodman, who was held by Syria after being shot down, and later other Americans held in Cuba and Serbia.
I learned how to negotiate as an African American growing up among white people. You have to negotiate every day.
The Reverend set his sights on the White House in 1984.
Milking cows in Iowa, they're coming back to the inner cities. So I Learned a lot during that period.
First thought of as a marginal candidate, Jackson finished third in the primary race with 18% of the vote. That campaign almost went off the rails when Jackson used an ethnic slur to refer to New York Jews.
Just mistakes, and they hurt.
He ran again in 1988, this time doubling his vote count and finishing in second in the Democratic race.
Keep hope alive on tomorrow night.
At the time, it was the farthest any black candidate had gone in a presidential contest.
But 20 years later, when President Barack ran, we were laying the groundwork for that season.
In 2017, Jackson had a new battle to fight, Parkinson's disease. But that didn't stop him.
If you hold on, if your cause is right and your grip is tight, you'll make it.
Late in life, he was still fighting. He was arrested in Washington while demonstrating for voting rights. His silent presence at the trial of Ahmaud Arbery's killers prompted defense lawyers to ask that he leave the courtroom. Jackson stayed.
I am somebody. I am somebody.
From the Jim Crow South, through the turbulent 60s, and into the Black Lives Matter movement, Jesse Jackson was a constant, unyielding voice for justice.
So, of course, our hearts go out to the family of Reverend Jesse Jackson. He did a lot of things in his life, and we completely understand and respect that, and we acknowledge that as he has passed away early this morning. I believe it was announced around 3 a.m. Eastern time that he passed from his family. And so, kind of moving on, I don't really know how to transition from something like that. But that was a very well done tribute by CNN. And also the New York Times had a very well done tribute and obituary for him. I want to transition into some breaking news that we are just now receiving in the last hour here. This is before I sort of went live, and I have my phone up so I can just kind of see the headlines, and so I can give it to you in its entirety. But in the case of Nancy Guthrie, we have some breaking news updates. The DNA on the glove that was found 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home returned no matches in the CODIS database. So the CODIS database it's an FBI database. It's the Combined DNA Index System. So like I said in yesterday's episode, it contains DNA from all over. And so that's why I was confused as to why the Pima County Sheriff's Department didn't go straight to the FBI and have them lead this investigation, because it probably would have been returned a little bit sooner, this data. But basically no matches were found in that sort of in that glove, the DNA from that glove. And so they do know that it's a male, which is that we can see that from the video, of course, but they don't know anything beyond that. Some other breaking news. So the Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs, Tricia McLaughlin, I don't know if I pronounced her name right. She is actually leaving the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security. She is one of the main spokespersons for the whole immigration crackdown, and she is leaving the department, according to sources that spoke with Fox News. She's been one of the most vocal defenders of President Trump's immigration enforcement policies, and she is set to leave the administration next week. And so that is some other breaking news coming in. Also, the U.S. Capitol Police, they just arrested someone within the past hour who was allegedly carrying a gun near the West Front, which is a part of the Capitol. I'm going to read to you a statement from the U.S. Capitol Police. They posted to X today. It says, quote, "Our officers just arrested a person with what appears to be a gun near the West Front of the U.S. Capitol building. Please avoid the area. We will provide more information when new information is confirmed." So they are currently investigating what happened. I don't think that they have released what this person was doing there with a gun, allegedly with a gun. And so they're still trying to figure that out. In other news, you guys, the Paramount Skydance, which is owned by David Ellison, is in a fight with Netflix to acquire Warner Bros. Discovery. Um, as you guys may or may not know, Netflix had offered a deal to Warner Bros. To acquire its studio assets, which includes HBO and the movie studio, but that does not include its cable channels such as CNN. And so CNN is not part of the Netflix deal. However, Paramount, owned by David Ellison, is suing, actually. They want this deal. They want to acquire all of Warner Bros. Discovery, which includes the CNN, the cable channels, basically. And so Netflix had offered $27.75, excuse me, $27.75 per share. And Paramount had actually originally offered $30 a share, but Warner Bros. Has now opened, and Warner Bros. Rejected that offer. They wanted to go with Netflix. Because I don't think they wanted to sell all of their assets that included the cable channels to Paramount. But they've now opened their discussions with Paramount again, and they're asking for the quote best and final proposal, which in legal jargon and business jargon, that basically means the best of the best. What can you offer? What is the best amount that you can offer for us? And so I believe it has been being reported that they now want to go to $31 a share. They had originally offered $30 a share, I believe, but it said that they are Paramount indicated it was willing to pay more than $30. Um, let's see here. I'm reading an article right now in my outline so I can give you guys the most up-to-date information. But $31 per share is the offer, not the final offer, it says. It says, quote, according to Warner Bros. Discovery, a person speaking on Paramount's behalf told a Warner Bros. Board member that Paramount would agree to pay $31 per share if the two sides held deal talks. And it looks like they are holding deal talks. What is the after effects of a deal like this, right? So Netflix would own the Warner Bros. Movie studio. Warner Bros. Is a very, very, very well-known movie company, as we know, but it would not own their cable channels. Also, Warner Bros. Owns HBO, HBO Max, all of their studio and assets, and so they have a lot of assets, and Netflix wants part of that. And Warner Bros. Had originally agreed to hold a vote to accept Netflix's deal, and they're still pushing for that. There is a vote, I believe it is March 20th. It is a special shareholder meeting, and the Warner Bros. Leadership will recommend to their shareholders to approve the Netflix deals for $27.75 per share, which is a lot of money. Think about it. Per share, every share owned worth $27.75. 27 and 20 and 75 cents. It's kind of confusing, you guys. This whole deal is very confusing because then Paramount launched a lawsuit, and so this may be actually just a sort of legal route that Warner Bros. Is taking in regards to that lawsuit, saying, "Hey, we'll actually hold talks now." I don't know exactly the details of the lawsuit. I kind of forget, but I'm still holding. Sorry, I'm still looking at this information coming in. And so Warner Bros., let's see. I want to read this quote from an article. Holding talks with Paramount now might unlock even more cash for a company that was barely trading at $10 per share a year ago. And so, yes. So Warner Bros. Was at a very low point. I don't know if they've actually filed for bankruptcy, but they are essentially on the routes to go bankrupt. And so Warner Bros. Is trying to sell off. They wanted to sell off their movie studio, their HBO assets, and the Warner Bros. Assets to another company, which we thought was Netflix, but then Paramount came in and launched a war against Netflix, basically trying to acquire Warner Bros. But then in Netflix's deal, the cable channels like CNN and TNT would have been spun off into and Discovery would have been spun off into its own company. But then in Paramount's deal, it would all be acquired under one company and nothing would be spun off. They would own and contain all of that. So I don't know. David Ellison, he wants all of it. He wants absolutely all of it. And that is just it's very telling and it's very David Ellison to want all of that. In other news, yesterday we reported on the Rhode Island hockey game at a high school, which there was an active shooter there killing 3 people, including himself or themselves, I should say, because in this new report, and injuring 4 others, in this new report, the shooting suspect's gender, and this is from Fox News, shooting suspect's gender identity was a source of past family conflicts. Apparently, the suspect, who is now dead by suicide, so it was a murder-suicide, of course, allegedly, identified as transgender and had a past family conflict over his or their gender identity, yeah, according to court documents. So the suspect's name is Robert Dorgan, who also went by Roberta. Roberta. I don't know how to pronounce that. Roberta? They're 56 years old, accused of opening fire inside a Pawtucket high school hockey game. And police described this as a, quote, family dispute. They said that on at a press conference yesterday. So this person killed 2 people and then killed themselves. They also injured 4 people. So 6 people shot, and then the suspect as well killed themselves. And so we have that update in the horrific shooting that happened in Rhode Island. We're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to talk about Iran. All the news happening with Iran. We'll be right back after the break. Whoops. Accidentally clicked the wrong scene there, but I apologize for the very long break that I just had, longer than I usually do. I was just pulling up this new headline on my phone. The U.S. has killed 11 people, all males, in 3 strikes on alleged drug running boats. I want to read you this quote from this post to X from U.S. Southern Command. It says, late on February 16th, at the direction of Southern Command Commander General Francis L. Donovan, Joint Task Force Southern Spear conducted 3 lethal kinetic strikes on 3 vessels operated by designated terrorist organizations. Intelligence confirmed the vessels were transiting along known narco-trafficking routes and were engaged in narco-trafficking operations. 11 male narco-terrorists were killed during these actions, 4 on the first vessel in the Eastern Pacific, 4 on the second vessel in the Eastern Pacific, and 3 on the third vessel in the Caribbean. No U.S. military forces were harmed. So this is some breaking news. This happened. This was reported, I should say, in the last hour. It happened late last night, and so we're just receiving this report. I didn't put it in my original show notes. That's why I'm reading it off of my phone here, so that I can provide the most up-to-date information. Like they said, no U.S. military personnel were harmed in the operation, and we've seen this before. I'm trying to grab the number here. 41 strikes on alleged drug smuggling boats, and over at least 144 people have been killed in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific. And this is a part of the Trump administration's efforts to dismantle and get rid of the narco-terrorist networks operated by what they call designated terrorist organizations. That is some breaking news coming in today. All right. What do you guys think about Rumble, the live streaming platform? Have you ever been on Rumble? Are you subscribed to Rumble? Do you follow people on Rumble? What would you think if I started live streaming on Rumble? I thought about it actually for quite some time. I think it's a great platform to live stream and get my show onto. So if you'd like to see me on Rumble, let me know. Let's move on to Iran. Yes, Iran. So the United States has held 2 talks with Iran, one in Oman and one in Geneva, and the one in Oman was earlier this month. The one in Geneva just concluded today. So firstly, I want to bring in this post from the supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei. Let's pull it up here. This is a post to X. There's two screenshots I have. This first one, the Americans say, quote, let's negotiate over your nuclear energy, and the result of the negotiation is supposed to be that you do not have this energy, unquote. And then the subtweet says, if that's the case, there is no room for negotiation. But if negotiations are truly to take place, determining the outcome of the negotiations in advance is a wrong and foolish act. And then in another post, he says, the fact that nuclear energy is our undeniable right has been also included in the guidelines of the International Atomic Energy Agency. That is, all countries have the right to own nuclear and enrichment installations. This is among a nation's rights. Why does the U.S. interfere? So, you guys, we have these talks that have been taking place, and I want to bring in some information here on these talks, which have just concluded. Apparently, they've actually agreed on, quote, guiding principles for talks. 1 second. So they've agreed on guiding principles for talks, and they also say that more work needs to be done. That is according to the Iranian foreign minister. He also said, he told Iranian state television that, quote, we are hopeful that we can get this work done quickly and we are able to spend time on it. But regardless, when it comes to the text, the work becomes more detailed and harder. So that came after they concluded the second round of talks in Geneva. The U.S. would like Iran to, the U.S. and Israel, I should say, would like Iran to, of course, get rid of their nuclear weapons. But they're also aiming to get rid of or limit Iran's ballistic missiles program. So actually, and I'm going to give you guys some information here. Iran's ballistic missiles program is essentially their main defense system. So when you're asking a nation to get rid of its defense system, you're essentially asking, or their ballistic system, sorry, you're essentially asking them to get rid of their defense. And I normally don't provide my own sort of beliefs, my own opinions on certain situations. But what I will say is that I do not agree with that. I think that each country is allowed to have its own, missile defense system. I'm not sure that any one or two countries can control that or mitigate that. Um, and of course, Israel is backing all of what the United States is doing. They're actually promoting the United States to go to war with Iran. They want that. They want Iran's defense systems and their military to be weakened. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which defends Iran. And listen, I think that each sovereign nation has the unalienable right of an undeniable right of defending themselves. I mean, they're a sovereign nation. Why are we getting involved in what sort of defense or lack of defense that they have? I don't think that that's right, in my opinion. I want to move into this update that, or not update, this news that we have. So Iran did fire missiles into the Strait of Hormuz, just as the envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were arriving in Geneva for these nuclear talks. But I want to read to you a specific quote from U.S. Central Command. Let me find this quote real quick. It says, quote, U.S. forces acknowledge Iran's right to operate professionally in international airspace and waters. Any unsafe and unprofessional behavior near U.S. forces, regional partners, or commercial vessels increases risk of collision, escalation, and destabilization. So, of course, U.S. Central Command did say, and this was ahead of their planned tests. I think there were tests, really, of their. And it was a naval exercise, essentially, of these missiles. They also said in a manner that is safe, professional, and avoids unnecessary risk to freedom of navigation for international maritime traffic. I think that was a very well put together statement from CENTCOM, U.S. Central Command. They're acknowledging their rights to test their weapons and defense systems and their missiles, and saying that it's okay and that they're allowed to do it, because that I think as a sovereign nation, you're allowed to have your own defense. Please let me know if you disagree with that. No matter if we as the United States or Israel dislike that country, that sovereign nation, they should still have the right to defend themselves, of course. And so the CENTCOM statement saying that they acknowledge their right to operate professionally in international airspace and waters is a very mature statement, I will say. Of course, we have seen the Trump administration building up their military presence in and around the Middle East as these nuclear talks continue. I don't know if it's in this article, but oh yes, here's this Trump quote, or this quote from Trump. They'll, as in, I think Iran, they'll be very important and we'll see what can happen. It's been typically Iran's a very tough negotiator. They're good negotiators or bad. I would say they're bad negotiators because we could have a deal instead of sending the B-2s in to knock out their nuclear potential. And we had to send the B-2s. I hope they're going to be more reasonable. They want to make a deal. We don't know if they actually want to make a deal. That's up to the Iranians. But I do want to pull in this poll that I actually posted on X. And actually was quite popular. We had, I think, 788 votes on the poll. Let me pull this up right now for you guys. So I asked, would you support the United States in an attack or war in Iran? I want to differentiate you guys the difference between an attack and a war. A war is what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. An attack is what we did in June on the nuclear facilities in Iran. Just one attack on multiple facilities, or one facility, or whatever you want to say. But what we did in June was an attack. It was not a war. So I asked the question and I differentiated these. And so we have the results pulled up here. 14.2% of people say that they support an attack. Only 3.3% of people say that they support war, and this is out of 788 votes. And there's still 2 days left in this poll. I wanted to provide some leeway past the negotiations in case any information came out. 6.2% said that they support both, and a whopping 76.3% of voters in this poll said that they support none. That's a pretty staggering number. I do believe that it is important to note that the 14.2% of people that say that they support an attack, that is, of course, that is different. Like I just stated, it's different than a war. An attack is not war, right? I mean, yes, an attack could lead to war, but in it of itself is not war. An attack is something like we did in June, attacking their nuclear facilities and taking them down for or delaying, them for a while. And so I think that's super important. I think this poll was very interesting. I also conducted this poll on my Instagram. I want to pull it up for you guys so I can get the most up-to-date numbers because more people may have voted in the poll. I asked the same question with the same 4 responses. I support war, I support an attack, I support both, and I support none. And I only had 3 voters, you guys. I only had 3 voters on my Instagram, but all 3 of them did say that they support none. So I do think that the majority of Americans do not support an attack on Iran. Of course, anything could happen. Anything it could happen. I'm adjusting my brightness on the camera here because I am very, very dark right now. I need to be brighter. So I'm adjusting the brightness. As you guys know, I am a solo reporter. I do this all on my own. I actually have my laptop just sitting right next to me, which is what I've been reading this whole time when I've been looking at certain articles or my outline that I create for each show. I'm just looking at it right here. You can see that right there. And so when I look at my laptop, I'm looking at the preview of myself to make sure I look good and that the lighting is correct. And so I do apologize if that is kind of, I don't know, annoying, or you're maybe confused on why I'm looking not at the camera, which is straight in front of me. My laptop's down here. Last episode, yesterday, I ended on quite a dark note. Yesterday's episode was dark. We talked about Nancy Guthrie. We talked about the shooting in Rhode Island, and I think we talked about one other thing, which I'm forgetting about right now. But I wanted to end on a sort of lighter note, because yesterday we did end on a sort of very dark note. Look at this. Look at this headline from the Washington Post. Papa John's is taking on Pizza Hut and Domino's Pan Pizza. We tried all 3. I thought this was a fun article. I don't know why. I just thought it was a very fun article. And so in conclusion here, and this, honestly, this may be the most influential and important investigation of our time ever. Which pizza is the best? The Washington Post set out to answer that critical question on which chain makes the best pan pizza. And the verdict is Pizza Hut still remains on top. No one out-pizzas the Hut. They did say that Papa John's came close with a very, quote, garlic-forward entry. And Domino's did not survive at all. They actually had raw dough, which actually, and now that you think about it, it's like, that's gross. Like, that's really gross to have raw dough. So if you're ordering pizza today, maybe you should consider Pizza Hut. As I said, the most important investigation of our time. This is boots on the ground journalism. This is what I like to see. Nobody out pizzas the Hut. Thank you guys so much for joining me. We will be off tomorrow, but on Thursday, we will be right back with our news. I appreciate your support. Like I said, make sure to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure to follow if you're watching on Twitter. And let me know what you guys think of Rumble. I may actually start setting my account up today so that you guys can watch this on Rumble if you're a supporter on there. I know a lot of shows, a lot of independent journalists are on Rumble, so let me know what you think about that, and if there's any other platforms I should stream on. Note that I don't stream on Instagram, because when I do, actually, it's very weird. It's like it crops my Instagram stream into like the vertical stream, like this, like just like a phone, like vertical. And so I don't really stream on there because I don't want my stream to be cropped. As you guys know, I stream like this horizontally. And so if you guys want me to stream anywhere else, let me know. Of course, I will look into it and I will take all of your suggestions. Um, I wanted to also bring up I'm kind of all over the place today, you guys. But Stephen Colbert said that he was barred from airing an interview with a Democratic senator candidate from Texas because of an FCC guideline. I probably will have more of that in Thursday's show, because the FCC has an equal time rule, which basically says that the broadcast stations are to provide equal time for either side of the political spectrum, which I think that's a fair rule. I don't necessarily think it should be enforced in a law. I do think that it is a fair standard that should be held by all all broadcast organizations. They should give equal time. Of course, I don't think that they do. And so I want to pull up this article because, and I might pronounce his name wrong. He's a Senate candidate for Texas, James Tallarico. I don't know. I apologize if I butchered his name. But Stephen Colbert said that CBS blocked his interview with that Senate candidate over fears of the equal time law. And my opinion on the equal time law, like I said, I think it's fair to provide the same amount of time for Republican candidates as you do for Democrat candidates, and vice versa. I think that's a standard that should be held, maybe an unspoken rule. I don't necessarily maybe believe in the law itself, but it comes, I think it comes from a good place, right? We want to see both sides of the political spectrum. So apparently that just happened. Well, that happened a couple of hours ago, but I'm just receiving an article from the New York Times on my screen here, which is why I'm reporting on it right as I'm trying to end the show here. But I appreciate you guys, of course, and stay tuned for my episode on Thursday. I'm sure we'll have some great, maybe some sad things to talk about. So I appreciate your time. This has been probably the longest episode that I've done yet. And so, of course, I appreciate your support and watching me. And let me know what you think about any other streaming platforms that are not YouTube and Twitter. Like I said, I was considering Rumble. I don't know if you guys want me to be on there, but any other platforms I will definitely look into. I appreciate your support. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on Thursday.